The most selfish thing you can do is refuse to take care of yourself. Yet you've been convinced it's the most selfless. While you're busy neglecting your health, abandoning your dreams, and saying yes to everyone else's priorities, you're forcing everyone who loves you to watch helplessly as you slowly self-destruct. Your family doesn't want your sacrifice. They want your strength. Your children don't need you to work yourself to death for them. They need you to be alive and present for them. Your friends don't want you to be available every moment. They want you to be valuable when you are available. When you refuse to make yourself a priority, you're not protecting others from your selfishness. You're burdening them with your weakness, your stress, your resentment, and your gradual disappearance. The airplane oxygen mask instruction exists for a reason. If you don't save yourself first, everyone around you suffers the consequences of your poor judgment. You know what airlines teach us that society refuses to acknowledge? They teach us the most important lesson about survival, about success, about living a meaningful life. Every time you step onto an airplane, they tell you something that will shock you if you really listen. They say, in the event of an emergency, oxygen masks will drop from the ceiling. Put your own mask on first before helping others, even your own children. Think about that for a moment. They're telling you to be selfish. They're telling you to save yourself first, even before your precious child sitting right next to you. Does that sound wrong to you? Does that sound cruel? Most people feel uncomfortable when they hear this instruction because we've been programmed to believe that putting ourselves first is somehow evil, somehow wrong, somehow selfish in the worst possible way. But here's what that airline instruction really teaches us. If you don't take care of yourself first, you'll be unconscious, useless, and unable to help anyone else. You'll pass out from lack of oxygen, and then both you and your child will die. The airline companies understand something that most of us have forgotten in our daily lives. You cannot save others if you cannot save yourself. You cannot help others if you are not in a position to help. You cannot give what you do not possess. Yet somehow, when we land that airplane and walk back into our regular lives, we completely forget this life-saving principle. We flip the script entirely. We put everyone else's oxygen mask on first. We make sure everyone else can breathe while we slowly suffocate. We call this noble, we call this love, we call this sacrifice. But what we're really doing is preparing for our own destruction and the destruction of those we claim to love. Let me tell you about David. David was a hard-working man, a dedicated father, a loving husband. He owned a small construction business and worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. He skipped meals regularly, rarely slept more than 4 hours a night, and hadn't taken a vacation in 8 years. When people asked him why he pushed himself so hard, he would say with pride, I'm doing this for my family. I want to give them everything they deserve. I want my children to have opportunities I never had. David believed he was being noble. He believed he was being selfless. He believed he was showing love through sacrifice. His wife begged him to slow down. His children begged him to come to their school events, their birthday parties, their soccer games. But David always had the same response. I'm working for you. I'm building our future. You'll understand someday. One Tuesday morning, David collapsed at a construction site. His heart simply stopped. The doctors said it was stress, exhaustion, years of neglecting his health. David was 42 years old. At his funeral, his 12-year-old son said something that broke everyone's heart. I would rather have had a poor dad who was alive than a rich dad who is dead. David thought he was putting his family first, but he had actually put his family last by not making himself a priority, by not taking care of his health, by not managing his stress, by not creating balance in his life. He robbed his family of the one thing they wanted most, him. His wife now struggles as a single mother. His children grew up without their father. The business collapsed because David was the business. And when David was gone, everything fell apart. This is what happens when we refuse to put on our own oxygen mask first. We think we're being heroic, but we're actually being destructive. We think we're showing love, but we're actually creating loss. We think we're being responsible, but we're actually being irresponsible to the highest degree. The airline instruction isn't teaching us to be selfish, it's teaching us to be smart. It's teaching us to be effective. It's teaching us to be truly loving. Because when you put your own oxygen mask on first, you're not just saving yourself, you're putting yourself in a position to save others. You're ensuring that you'll be conscious, alert, and capable when others need you most. But society has programmed us to feel guilty about this. Society has taught us that self-care is selfish. Society has convinced us that we should run ourselves into the ground for others, and if we don't, we're somehow bad people. Society has created a culture where being exhausted is a badge of honor, where being overwhelmed is a sign of importance, where being burned out is proof of dedication. This programming is killing us, literally killing us. And it's killing our relationships, our dreams, our potential, and our ability to make a real difference in the world. When you don't make yourself a priority, you don't just hurt yourself, you hurt everyone who depends on you, everyone who loves you, everyone who needs you to be at your best. The truth that will change your life is this: making yourself your top priority is not selfish, it's essential. It's not cruel, it's kind. It's not wrong, it's the only way to do things right. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot help others breathe if you're suffocating. The mirror reflects more than just your physical appearance. It reflects the truth about how you've been treating the most important person in your life, you, and for most people. That reflection tells a story of neglect, of abandonment, of slow suicide disguised as noble sacrifice. The person staring back at you has been running on empty for so long that they've forgotten what it feels like to be full. When you consistently put everyone else before yourself, something devastating happens. You don't just get tired, you don't just get stressed, you begin to disappear. Piece by piece, day by day, you start losing yourself. Your energy disappears first, then your enthusiasm, then your creativity, then your joy, and finally your very essence, the unique spark that makes you who you are. Maria discovered this the hard way. She was a single mother of 3 children, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Every morning she would wake up at 5 in the morning to prepare breakfast and pack lunches. She would drop the kids at school, rush to her first job at a medical office, work 8 hours, pick up the children, help with homework, cook dinner, clean the house, get the children ready for bed, and then start her second job, working online as a virtual assistant until 2 in the morning. Maria told herself she was doing what good mothers do. She was sacrificing for her children. She was ensuring they had everything they needed. She never bought clothes for herself, always buying for the kids instead. She never went out with friends, spending every free moment with her children. She never took time to exercise, to read, to pursue her own interests, to nurture her own dreams. For 3 years, Maria lived this way. She wore exhaustion like a crown, telling everyone who would listen how much she was doing for her children. She felt proud of her sacrifice. She felt noble in her self-denial. But her children weren't thriving. They were worrying. They watched their mother disappear before their eyes. They saw her joy fade, her laughter become rare, her energy drain away completely. One evening, Maria's 8-year-old daughter asked her a question that shattered her world. "Mommy, why are you always sad? Did we do something wrong?" Maria realized with horror that while she thought she was giving her children everything, she was actually giving them a mother who was barely surviving. She was giving them a role model of self-destruction. She was teaching them that love means erasing yourself for others. Maria's breaking point came when she fainted at her daughter's school play. The stress, the exhaustion, the constant neglect of her own basic needs had finally caught up with her as she lay in the hospital bed. She realized a painful truth. By trying to be everything to her children, she had become nothing to herself. And in becoming nothing to herself, she was becoming less and less valuable to her children every day. This is the brutal reality of self-neglect. When you don't prioritize yourself, you don't become a better person, you become a worse person. You don't become more loving, you become more resentful. You don't become more giving, you become more empty. And that emptiness affects everyone around you, especially the people you're supposedly sacrificing for. The people who love you don't want your exhaustion. They want your energy. They don't want your stress. They want your peace. They don't want your sacrifice. They want your strength. They don't want you to disappear for them. They want you to be fully present with them. When you run yourself into the ground trying to serve others, you're not giving them a gift. You're giving them a burden. Here's what nobody tells you about self-sacrifice. It's actually the most selfish thing you can do. When you neglect yourself, you force everyone who loves you to worry about you. You force them to carry the weight of your poor choices. You force them to watch helplessly as you deteriorate. You force them to live with the constant fear that something will happen to you because you refuse to take care of yourself. Think about it. When Maria fainted at that school play, who suffered? Her children suffered. They were terrified, confused, and traumatized. Her sacrifice didn't protect them from pain, it caused them pain. Her self-neglect didn't show them love. It showed them what love looks like when it's twisted into something destructive. The mirror doesn't lie. It shows you the consequence of treating yourself as if you don't matter. It shows you what happens when you put everyone else's oxygen mask on first while you slowly suffocate. It shows you the gradual disappearance of the person you are meant to be. But here's the hope hidden in that reflection. The same person who chose self-neglect can choose self-care. The same person who learned to disappear can learn to reappear. The same person who forgot their own value can remember their worth. You cannot give what you do not have. This is not a suggestion. This is not a philosophy. This is a law of life, as unchangeable as gravity. Yet most of us spend our entire lives trying to violate this law, attempting to pour from empty cups, wondering why nothing substantial comes out when you try to give love while you hate yourself. What comes out is not love, it's desperation. When you try to give confidence while you doubt yourself, what comes out is not assurance, it's insecurity. When you try to give strength while you're falling apart, what comes out is not power, it's weakness disguised as effort. Rachel understood this principle after years of learning it the hard way. She was a high school English teacher who had touched thousands of young lives over her 20-year career. Students would come back years later to tell her how she had changed their lives, how she had inspired them to believe in themselves, how she had shown them their potential when no one else could see it. But Rachel had a secret. For the first 15 years of her teaching career, she was miserable. She hated getting up in the morning. She felt like a fraud standing in front of her students, trying to inspire them to pursue their dreams while she had completely abandoned her own. She told them they were valuable while believing she was worthless. She encouraged them to take care of themselves while she survived on coffee, fast food, and 3 hours of sleep every night. The turning point came during a particularly difficult year when Rachel was dealing with a challenging group of students. She found herself snapping at them regularly, feeling resentful about their lack of motivation, becoming cynical about their potential. One day, a student she had taught years earlier visited her classroom and barely recognized her. He said, "Miss Rachel, you used to light up this room. What happened to you?" That question forced Rachel to face a harsh reality. She couldn't inspire others to value themselves when she didn't value herself. She couldn't teach them to pursue their dreams when she had stopped pursuing her own. She couldn't pour into their lives when her own life was empty. Rachel made a decision that changed everything. She decided to become her own first priority. She started waking up an hour earlier each morning, not to do more work, but to do something for herself. Sometimes reading, sometimes walking, sometimes just sitting quietly with her thoughts. She began eating proper meals instead of grabbing whatever was convenient. She set boundaries around her time, saying no to extra committees and volunteer work that drained her energy. Most importantly, Rachel returned to her own dream that she had abandoned years earlier, writing. She had always wanted to write novels, but had convinced herself she was too busy helping others pursue their dreams to pursue her own. She started writing again, 30 minutes every evening, treating it like the important appointment it was. The transformation was remarkable. Within 6 months, Rachel's students began responding to her differently. Her energy was infectious again. Her enthusiasm was genuine again. Her belief in their potential was real again because her belief in her own potential had been restored. She wasn't trying to give them something she didn't have anymore. She was sharing from her abundance. This is the foundation principle in action. When you invest in yourself, when you fill your own cup, when you build your own strength, everything you give to others becomes authentic and powerful. You stop trying to inspire others from a place of emptiness and start inspiring them from a place of fullness. Your personal foundation, your physical health, your mental clarity, your emotional stability, your spiritual strength is not separate from your ability to serve others. It is the source of your ability to serve others. The stronger your foundation, the more you can build upon it. Now comes the moment of truth, the practical shift from understanding the principle to living it. Making yourself your top priority isn't about becoming selfish or abandoning others. It's about becoming so strong, so clear, so energized that your ability to serve others multiplies exponentially. The first step in this priority reset is understanding that your time, energy, and attention are your most valuable currencies. You only have so much of each. And once they're spent, they're gone. Most people give these precious resources away carelessly, saying yes to everything and everyone except themselves. They treat their own needs like optional extras instead of essential requirements. Start treating your personal development like a non-negotiable appointment. When someone asks you to do something during the time you've allocated for yourself, the answer is simple. I have an appointment. You don't need to explain that the appointment is with yourself. You don't need to justify why that appointment matters. You simply honor it the same way you would honor any other important commitment. This means scheduling time for your physical health, exercise, proper meals, adequate sleep. These aren't luxuries you'll get to when everything else is done. These are the foundation upon which everything else is built. When you're physically strong and energized, you make better decisions. You're more patient with others. You're more creative in solving problems. It means scheduling time for your mental development, reading, learning, thinking, planning. Your mind needs constant nourishment, just like your body. When you stop feeding your mind, it becomes stagnant. And stagnant minds cannot inspire or lead others effectively. It means scheduling time for your emotional health, processing your feelings, dealing with stress, celebrating your wins, learning from your failures. Emotional health isn't something that happens automatically. It requires intentional attention and care. Learning to say no becomes your superpower in this process. Every yes to something that drains you is a no to something that could energize you. Every yes to someone else's urgent request is often a no to your own important goals. The word no isn't cruel, it's protective. It protects your energy for what matters most. But here's what most people miss about saying no. You're not just protecting yourself. You're protecting others from getting your worst. When you say yes to everything, you show up everywhere exhausted, resentful, and operating at half capacity. When you carefully choose where to invest your energy, you show up fully present, enthusiastic, and operating at full capacity. The boundary revolution begins when you realize that people will take as much of your time and energy as you allow them to take. They're not being malicious, they're simply responding to what you make available. When you make everything available, you teach them that your time and energy have no value when you make your time and energy precious and limited. People begin to respect and appreciate what you offer. Time allocation mastery comes from understanding that you cannot manage time. You can only manage yourself within time. Everyone gets the same 24 hours. The difference between people who thrive and people who merely survive is how they allocate those hours. Successful people don't have more time, they have clearer priorities. Start viewing self-investment as compound interest for your life. Every hour you invest in your health today pays dividends for years to come. Every hour you invest in your skills today multiplies your opportunities tomorrow. Every hour you invest in your emotional well-being today improves every relationship you'll have in the future. The priority reset isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming the person you were always meant to be. It's about removing the barriers that have been preventing you from operating at your full potential. It's about finally giving yourself permission to matter in your own life. Here's the truth that will revolutionize how you think about self-prioritization. When you make yourself your top priority, you don't become less valuable to others, you become exponentially more valuable. When you invest in yourself consistently, something magical happens. Your impact doesn't just improve, it multiplies. Your influence doesn't just grow, it compounds. Your ability to change lives doesn't just increase, it explodes. Think of yourself as a lighthouse. A lighthouse doesn't run around the ocean trying to save every ship in trouble. It doesn't leave its post to chase after vessels that are lost. It doesn't dim its light to make other lights feel brighter. A lighthouse does one thing, and it does it with absolute consistency. It shines as brightly as possible from exactly where it stands. And because it shines so brightly, ships can navigate safely for miles and miles around it. But here's what happens when a lighthouse stops maintaining itself. When it stops replacing its bulbs, stops cleaning its lens, stops fueling its power source, stops maintaining its structure. The light grows dimmer and dimmer until eventually it goes out completely. And when that lighthouse goes dark, every ship in the area becomes lost. The very vessels it was meant to guide to safety now crash against the rocks. This is exactly what happens in your life when you stop maintaining yourself. When you stop investing in your health, your growth, your dreams, your well-being. Your light begins to dim. And as your light dims, everyone who depends on that light, your family, your friends, your colleagues, your community, begins to lose their way. Let me tell you about Marcus, a man who discovered this multiplication effect in the most unexpected way. Marcus was a financial advisor in his mid-40s who had built a successful practice helping families secure their financial futures. He was good at his job, respected by his clients, and financially comfortable. But Marcus had a problem that was slowly destroying everything he had worked to build. Marcus was addicted to saying yes. He said yes to every client request, no matter how unreasonable. He said yes to every networking event, even when they conflicted with family time. He said yes to every favor asked by colleagues, friends, and neighbors. He said yes to coaching his son's baseball team, leading a committee at his church, and volunteering for 3 different charities. Marcus believed that being helpful, being available, being indispensable to everyone made him a good person. But Marcus was dying inside. He worked 12-hour days, then came home to more obligations. He hadn't read a book for pleasure in 5 years. He hadn't exercised in 3 years. He hadn't taken a real vacation in 4 years. He was gaining weight, losing sleep, and becoming increasingly irritable with the people he loved most. His wife felt like she was married to a stranger. His children barely knew him beyond his role as their chauffeur to various activities. The crisis came when Marcus had a mild heart attack at age 46. As he lay in the hospital bed, something became crystal clear to him. In his desperate attempt to be everything to everyone, he had become nothing to himself. And in becoming nothing to himself, he was rapidly becoming useless to everyone else during his recovery. Marcus made a radical decision. He was going to rebuild his life with himself as the foundation, not the afterthought. He started saying no to requests that drained his energy. He resigned from 2 of the 3 charities. He stepped down from the church committee. He hired an associate to handle some of his client load. He began waking up at 5 in the morning, not to do more work, but to exercise and read. Marcus allocated 2 hours every evening to his family with no exceptions, no phone calls, no emails, no work. He scheduled quarterly weekend retreats for himself where he would think, plan, and recharge. He invested in his own education, attending seminars and workshops to improve his skills. He began eating properly, sleeping adequately, and treating his health as his most important asset. The transformation was remarkable, but not just for Marcus. Within 6 months, his business began growing faster than ever before. Clients started referring more people to him because his energy and enthusiasm were infectious. His advice became more valuable because his thinking was clearer. His relationships deepened because he was fully present instead of partially distracted. His marriage was reborn. His wife fell in love with him all over again because she was seeing the man she had married energetic, passionate, fully alive. His children began seeking his advice and company because he had become someone worth being around. His friends valued his time more because it had become precious and limited. Most importantly, Marcus discovered that by making himself his top priority, he didn't help fewer people. He helped more people at a much deeper level. The time he spent with clients was more focused and valuable. The advice he gave was more thoughtful and effective. The relationships he maintained were more meaningful and authentic. This is the multiplication effect in action. When you strengthen yourself, you strengthen everything connected to you. When you improve yourself, you improve every relationship you touch. When you invest in yourself, you increase your capacity to invest in others. Your family doesn't need you to sacrifice yourself for them. They need you to be strong for them. Your friends don't need you to be available every moment. They need you to be valuable when you are available. Your community doesn't need you to say yes to everything. They need you to say yes to the right things and do them excellently. The world is not served by your exhaustion. The world is not helped by your depletion. The world is not improved by your self-destruction. The world needs you at your absolute best, operating at full capacity, shining as brightly as possible. Your legacy will not be determined by how much you sacrificed for others. Your legacy will be determined by how much you strengthened yourself so that your strength could lift others. Your legacy will be measured not by how much you gave up, but by how much you gave from a place of abundance. Starting today, you have a choice. You can continue operating from emptiness, trying to pour from cups that are perpetually empty, slowly dimming your light until it goes out completely. Or you can choose to fill your own cup first, to maintain your own light, to make yourself strong, so that your strength can benefit everyone around you. The airplane oxygen mask instruction isn't just about surviving emergencies at 30,000 feet. It's about thriving in every area of life at ground level. Put your own mask on first. Make yourself your top priority, not because you matter more than others, but because when you matter to yourself, you can truly matter to others. Your time is now. Your life is waiting. Your light is ready to shine, brighter than ever before. But it all begins with a single decision. The decision to finally make yourself your own top priority. The decision to stop apologizing for taking care of yourself. The decision to start showing up as the strong, energized, fully alive person you were always meant to be. The multiplication effect begins with you. Your strength multiplied becomes strength for others. Your light multiplied becomes guidance for others. Your life, lived fully and intentionally, becomes an inspiration that others can follow to find their own way home. Make yourself your top priority. Everything and everyone you love depends on it.